Thank you all for coming out. As all of you know, this coming Tuesday, 3 days, there will be primaries in New Mexico, South Dakota, Montana, New Jersey, California, and a caucus in North Dakota. The Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico are voting this weekend, and Washington, D.C. Democrats will have their primary on June 14th. Now, I have no idea what the vote totals will be in these contests, nor do I think anybody else knows. But I believe we have an excellent chance to win a majority of these primaries and caucuses. In California, which has the primary with the most delegates, the most important primary, there are 475 pledged delegates at stake. In my view, if the voter turnout is high, we will win California, and we stand a chance to win it with a big margin. In terms of delegate math, I think there is some confusion in the media. Right now, in terms of delegate math, as you all know, it requires 2,383 votes, delegate votes, to clinch the Democratic nomination. As of today, Secretary Clinton has 1,769 pledged delegates, and I have 1,501 pledged delegates. It is extremely unlikely that Secretary Clinton will have the requisite number of pledged delegates to claim victory on Tuesday night. Now, I have heard reports that Secretary Clinton has said it's all going to be over on Tuesday night. I have heard reports that the media, after the New Jersey results come in, are going to declare that it is all over. That simply is not accurate. There are 931 pledged delegates at stake in contests between today and June 14th. For Secretary Clinton to get to the magic number of 2,383, she would have to win 2/3 of those pledged delegates. Frankly, unless I am very, very mistaken, that is absolutely not going to happen. In other words, at the end of the nominating process, no candidate will have enough pledged delegates to call the campaign a victory. They will be dependent upon super delegates. In other words, the Democratic National Convention will be a contested convention. It is true, obviously, that Secretary Clinton has received the overwhelming support from superdelegates. There is no debate about that. She leads me in the number of superdelegates by an overwhelming, approximately 10-to-1 margin. But here is the point. For the media to be lumping together on Tuesday night the pledged delegates and the superdelegates is just not accurate. Pledged delegates are pledged to vote for their candidates. Superdelegates make their final decision at the convention on July 25th, 6 long weeks from today. Superdelegates can and have changed their candidate choice in the past. This is not Bernie Sanders stating an opinion. This is from Luis Miranda, Communications Director for the Democratic National Committee. I don't always agree with the DNC, but this is what Mr. Miranda said in a recent interview with Jake Tapper of CNN. Quote, superdelegates, I think one of the problems is the way the media reports it. Any night that you have a primary or caucus, the media lumps in superdelegates that they have pooled because they call them up and say, who are you supporting? They don't actually vote until the convention. And so they shouldn't be included in any count on primary or caucus night, because the only thing you are picking on primary and caucus nights are the pledged delegates based on the vote. That is what the communications director of the Democratic National Committee says, and he is exactly right. So for the media or anybody else or Secretary Clinton to say on Tuesday night, let's add together all of the superdelegates that I have, plus the pledged delegates I have, and we're over the top, is inaccurate. Now, I am not naive. I am pretty good in arithmetic. I understand that the battle for the Democratic nomination that I am waging is a very, very steep climb. No one has heard me say differently. But given the fact that when I began this campaign a year ago, when I was 60 points behind Secretary Clinton, when I was 50 points down here in the first poll done in California, and where just the other day there was a poll that had us 1 point ahead, we have come a very long way, and steep climbs and challenges are not something that this campaign shies away from. As all of you know, I am not a great fan of the current nominating process. It is a deeply flawed process, and whether I win this nomination or whether I do not win this nomination, I will do everything that I can to change it. The idea that more than 400 superdelegates came on board Secretary Clinton's campaign before any other candidate had declared their willingness to run for office is totally absurd. That is called an anointment process, not a democratic process with a small or large d. Imagine that, the establishment coming on board and saying, this is our candidate, doesn't matter who is running against her, doesn't matter how the campaign unfolds, that is our candidate. The idea that these superdelegates were on board Secretary Clinton's campaign 10 months before the first vote was counted in Iowa is totally nonsensical. And that is a process which must be changed, and I will do my best to change it. Clearly, as everybody knows, the political world has changed since April 2015, when Secretary Clinton received the support of 400 superdelegates. Now, as we go forward, let me be very clear that I do understand that we have an uphill road to travel. But I do also want to make it clear what I will be telling to these superdelegates, because they are now in their position, whether I like it or not. Those are the rules I intend to change, but they are the rules right now. And the case that we make to the superdelegates is fairly obvious. And that is the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States would, in my view, be a disaster for this country. His bigotry against Mexicans and Latinos, against Muslims, against African Americans, against women, against veterans, is not something that can be tolerated in the United States in the year 2016. Further, his economic agenda will result in the rich becoming much richer, while everybody else continues to become poorer. And clearly, his foreign policies are extremely reckless. Donald Trump must not be elected president. Therefore, the Democrats need the strongest possible candidate to defeat Donald Trump. And I believe and the case that I will make to the superdelegates is that based on all of the objective evidence that I have seen, the Sanders campaign is the campaign to defeat Donald Trump. In national poll after national poll, and in statewide poll after statewide poll, we defeat Trump by much greater numbers than Secretary Clinton. Polls in California, in Michigan, in New Hampshire, in New Jersey, just within the last few days or few weeks, and other states show that we defeat Donald Trump by much greater numbers than does Secretary Clinton. In fact, as you may know, there are states where Secretary Clinton actually loses to Trump while we defeat Trump, North Carolina among many others. The latest NBC national poll had Bernie Sanders beating Trump by 15 points, Clinton beating him by 3 points. There have been some national polls in which Trump actually came on top of Secretary Clinton. But polling is not the only reason why I believe that I am the strongest candidate. What our campaign has done is to bring millions of people into the political process who previously were not engaged. And that is working class people, and that is young people by the millions. Voter registration, right here in California, Secretary of State just came out with some numbers yesterday in which voter registration has surged here in California, and it is equally true in many other states around this country. And here in California, that surge is tied to young people registering to vote as well as Latinos. This is extremely important. But equally important, from the perspective of any delegate going to the Democratic National Convention, is the simple fact that our campaign has the energy, it has the enthusiasm, and it has the grassroots activism that a national general election campaign needs to bring out a large voter turnout. Here is a political truism. Republicans win, as they did in 2014, when people are demoralized, when they give up on the political process. When voter turnout is low, Republicans do well. When people are energized, when they are prepared to stand up and fight for change, Democrats do well. I think all of the objective evidence suggests that our campaign has the energy, has the enthusiasm, which will translate into a large voter turnout in the general election in November. And that means not only do Democrats retain the White House, we regain the U.S. Senate, we do better in the House, we win governor's races all over this country. I am running for president because I want to give the American people a real choice in this election. A choice not just to vote against somebody, but to vote for a vision for where our great country can become. It is very clear that Donald Trump's negative ratings are enormously high, unprecedented for a major party presidential candidate, and Secretary Clinton's negative ratings are also very, very high. I think it is important to give the American people a choice about a new direction, a future that calls for a government that represents all of us, not just the 1%, a future which says that we will not continue to have a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections, a future in which we have a minimum wage that is a living wage, which is $15 an hour, a future which says we're going to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create 13 million decent paying jobs, a future which says that we will pass comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship, a future which says that we will join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a right, not a privilege, a future which says that, yes, we are going to leave this planet in a way that is healthy and habitable, which means that we will take on the fossil fuel industry and we will transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And by the way, we will also end fracking so that people in California and in America can have clean drinking water. So that is why I am running for president. We look forward on Tuesday to do extremely well. And I would just add that for all of those people who said, well, you know, Bernie, you should drop out, think about what they are saying to the people of California and the other states that have yet to vote. Now, maybe I am old-fashioned, but I do believe that the people of California, the largest state in this country, should have a right to cast their ballot to see which candidate they want to become president of the United States.